Good afternoon, everyone. I am Father Binoy Chekondil CMI on behalf of CMI Thoma province of Chanda, the Department of Evangelization and Pastoral Ministry, and also on behalf of BJ and Carmel Academy Chandrapur, welcome all of you to this webinar titled Mental Wellness Before and After COVID-19. As we are aware, COVID-19 has played a big havoc with humanity, and we lost many people, including a large number of human beings of different categories, our own family members, religious people, our own good friends, neighbors, our benefactors, etc. Now we spend a few minutes in prayer, listening to a song produced by our department during this pandemic. Let us pray for the success of the webinar and pray for our country and the entire world that we get the power of mind to withstand all the problems in our lives.
मेरे प्रभु अंतर्यामी गूंज उठे वह मेरे शरणा दर्द भरे मेरे जीवन की आंसू मिठाए स्वर संसार कुछ भी नहीं संसार कुछ भी नहीं राह दिखा मेरे प्रभु राह दिखा मेरे प्रभु राह दिखा मेरे प्रभु पावन रोटी में पाने तरसता हूँ मैं मेरी प्यास बुझाने वाले मेरा मोह मिटाने वाले क्रूस में जान दिए तू मेरे प्यारे हैं सपने अपने हैं अंतर्यामी गूंज उठे वह मेरे शरणा दर्द भरे मेरे जीवन की आंसू मिठाए स्वर संसार कुछ भी नहीं यह संसार कुछ भी नहीं राह प्रभु।
Let us have 1 minute silent prayer for the success of the webinar. And also let us pray for our resource person and all the participants. Thank you. Now it is time for me to introduce our resource person, Mr. Jini K. Gopinath, who was my teacher in Christ University, Bangalore, and who is my very good friend and associate. Jini K. Gopinath is a consultant clinical psychologist and a certified clinical hypnotherapist. He completed his post-graduation in applied psychology from Kerala University, MSc in yoga from Vivekananda University, Bangalore, and MPhil in clinical psychology from Kasturba Medical College, Manipal, and completed his PhD from University of Kerala, Trivandrum. He was trained in CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, by Dr. Aaron Beck and Dr. Judith Beck, who are the founders at Beck's Institute, Philadelphia, USA. And he obtained his specialty training in clinical hypnosis from International Society of Hypnosis under Michael Yapko and Hassan Aladdin at Germany. Currently, he is the Chief Psychology Officer at Your Dost Online Counseling and Emotional Wellness Company, Bangalore. Clinical Director and Chief Clinical Psychologist at Mind Matters Clinic, Bangalore. He is the peak performance coach for Team Kings 11 Punjab, Indian Premier League 2020. In the past, he worked as the manager of clinical operations at Optum International and director at the Insight Mental Health Services Private Limited. He was also an assistant professor at the Department of Psychology, Christ University, Bangalore, when I was a student. Swami Vivekananda Yoga University, Indian Institute of Psychology and Research, Bangalore, and Mahatma Gandhi University, Kottayam, Kerala. He was also the performance coach for Team Mumbai Indians during Indian Premier League Season 6, 2013, where he got a chance to mentor Bharatratna Master Blaster Sachin Tendulkar. He regularly conducts workshops in different parts of the country. He has also conducted workshops in Nepal, Sri Lanka, Germany, Iran, Malaysia, and Middle East, to name a few. He has presented papers and conducted workshops in national and international forums of mental health, has authored 7 books and a dozen research papers in international and national journals. I, on behalf of all the participants present here for this online webinar, welcome our resource person, Dr. Jini K. Gopinath, to this webinar. I also welcome all the superiors, principals, fathers, sisters, brothers, teachers, and all the friends who are attending this webinar from all over the world, and hearty welcome to you. Now, a few guidelines to conduct the session effectively. We have exactly 50 minutes input session and then 15 to 20 minutes interaction. Please mute your mic and switch off your camera. Otherwise, there can be disturbances and distractions. So it is my humble request, all of you, please mute your mic and switch off your camera once my interactive session is over. And you can post your questions in the chat box, and during interaction, we will compile all the questions and ask the resource person to avoid the disturbance and save the time as well. During interaction, Google form for the e-certificates will be sent to you, and you are requested to fill up and submit it. And send the e-form only just once. And last time we received many e-forms from the same person with the same name. And please remember, send it only just once and just only for you. Please don't send for your friends who are not attending the webinar. So all of you will get e-certificates which will be useful for CBSE schools and other schools as well. Now, I invite Dr. Jini Gopinath, who is a resource person. Now over to dear sir.
Thank you, Father Binoy, for that warm introduction. And good afternoon, everyone present here. And I'm extremely happy to see a huge number, a huge crowd, even during a Sunday afternoon. Extremely happy and delighted to be a part of this gathering. And Father Binoy very clearly mentioned, we have been associated for the last couple of years when he was our student from Christ University, Bangalore. Thank you once again for this invitation. So when we talk about COVID-19, about this pandemic at this point in time, you know that this is a crisis for all of us. Almost 16 crores of the world population impacted by this COVID-19. Around 35 lakhs died worldwide in this pandemic. When you come to India, it's almost like 2.7 crores of our population impacted by that, and around 3 lakhs died during this pandemic. So that's the reason why it's called a crisis. So when we talk about crisis is something where things are unpredictable, things are uncertain. So what happens is that we don't know what to do right now, isn't it? Because the kind of coping strategies we had may not be enough at this point in time in terms of handling the current issues, because we never had a precedence like this. We had Spanish flu almost 100 years, 110, 115 years ago, but none of us had an opportunity to go through that and understand what needs to be done during this pandemic. So, and as a human being, normal human being, we may not be comfortable in staying in a place where things are unpredictable. We want everything to be certain, right? Say, for example, whenever we get into an uncertain, unpredictable situation, there is a tendency for us to break down. So we cannot tolerate these unpredictable situations. We always need to be in a very certain, very predictable environments. That's the reason why at this point in time, when we go through this crisis situation, it is very difficult for most of us. So I will take you through some of the major challenges which we face during this point in time, especially from a mental health perspective. And we'll end with a small breath watching exercise before we take up the questions from the audience. So when we had the first wave, if you remember, in 2020 March, the first wave, what happened? Most of us believed that it was not in India. It was not near our place. It was in China. It was in Italy. It was in America. It was not in our place. But what happened during the second wave? Second wave, we know that it's not just numbers. It started coming into our neighborhood. Our family is impacted. Our friends are impacted. Our neighbors are impacted. Some of us lost even some of our family members and close associates. So what's happening right now? So it's like initially when it came to India, we were in denial. We thought that it's nothing to do with us. But right now, it has come to our system. It has come to our premises. So it's no more numbers, it's names now. So this is the transition of Corona at this point in time, where We are all psychologically impacted. It's time for us to understand and accept the fact that it is impacting us. The denial is not helping us anymore. And lot of words came into our normal day-to-day vocabulary, right? Like quarantine was a completely new term for us. Lockdown, we never heard about this kind of a lockdown in our entire life. So we have social distancing, we have isolation, we have travel ban. I'm a person who travel minimum 3 or 4 times in a month for my training programs and other engagements. Last time when I was working with IPL, we had to do online sessions with players. So our economy is impacted. So now you know that most of you are working from home, taking the classes online. So isn't it impacting us? Isn't it impacting our psychological system? See, for example, father, mother working from home, kids studying from home. So the kind of conflicts which started impacting in our families now, the kind of, because we may not have 4 rooms where all the 4 people can start working separately, right? Might be in a 1 BHK or a 2 BHK, we might have to study or work or live together. So what happened? There is a lot of disturbances in the premises at this point. So how is it impacting us? So we'll try to understand how this particular psychological or this COVID pandemic issues impacting our psychological system first, and then we get into the resilience bit. So mental health concerns, mental health issues can manifest in different domains. Say, for example, I will give an analogy here so that you'll be able to understand. See, we are like a pressure cooker. Our psychological system is almost like a pressure cooker. So when we talk about pressure cooker, so you know that when you buy a pressure cooker, it comes in, by default, it comes in certain capacities. Some pressure cookers are 5 liter capacities, some of them are 6 liters, some of them are 7. It goes on that way. And once you buy that, you may not be able to increase the capacity also, right? And what do we do when you start cooking with using this pressure cooker in your kitchen? When the pressure builds up, you know that, right? The whistle goes on. So what do we do generally? We either reduce the flame or lift that weight so that the pressure can go out. But in our system, suppose if we are the pressure cooker, in our system, we don't have any control over the flame because the flame is constant, like the corona outside, or the relationship we are in, or the kind of family systems we are in, or the kind of work we do, or the kind of manager we have, the kind of social system we are in. So there is no control over the flame. The flame is constant. Now you assume that cooker, which is kept in the stove, where the flame is on. The only option you have at this point is to release that weight so that some pressure can go out. But if you're not able to do that, then there is a tendency for this pressure cooker to burst. The same thing applicable in our system also, in our psychological system also. We are all normal human beings, very vulnerable human beings. If things are not handled properly during this difficult situation, there is a tendency for our systems to get bursted. So how do you know that we are struggling or suffering or vulnerable? Say, for example, psychological system or psychological manifestation or the issue manifestation or the distress can be manifested in 4 different domains. Usually what happens is that it comes up in the physical domain. Physical domain in the sense your sleep is impacted. Appetite. Sleep is impacted in the sense you are not able to sleep, or in between you get up but you are not able to go back to sleep, or in the morning you get up little early, you are not able to go back to sleep again. So what happens? Daytime, your entire day, you feel fatigued, you feel tired. The second one, what happens is that you have your heart beating faster, you have sweating, you have headache, low back pain, tremors, not able to not able to have that energy to sustain that full day. This is in the physical domain. Next comes in the cognitive domain. Cognitive domain in the sense which is usually very commonly seen in kids also, when you interact with your children and also with your students. Not able to attend properly, concentrate properly, memorize properly. When you compare with the previous, he was absolutely fine before, but nowadays he's not able to do that. Cognitive one. And you also think that you're not able to handle things properly. Things are not able to get managed properly and things like that. Next comes affective level, the third one. Affective level in the sense people start crying continuously and very anxious every time, not have the confidence to start anything, not able to initiate or complete the task which has been assigned to you. And the last one, the behavioral level. Behavioral level in the sense the person withdraws into a shell, doesn't want to interact with people, connect with people, not getting pleasure from the things which they used to engage before. Say, for example, previously he used to go out for a walk with his friends, or he was an active participant in the WhatsApp group of his classmates, but nowadays he's aloof completely. So some of these things are the reflection of that. It is the psyche is telling you that, hey, I'm struggling, can you help me? But there is a slight difference in the way psychological issues are manifested in India, and when you compare with the Western population. In India, what happens? In Indian context, most of the psychological issues are manifested as physical symptoms. Do you know why? Because of the stigma attached. What do you mean by stigma? Say, for example, if you go out and tell people that, hey, I'm depressed or I'm anxious, you know that people do not take it in a proper way. They think that he's mad, he's crazy, he's lunatic. That's the kind of things which we talk about people outside in movies, social media, in our print media, everywhere it's being projected that way. That's the reason why we have huge stigma attached with mental health. That is the reason why people do not want to tell or share that they are distressed to other people, because that once they come to know that you are distressed and you are struggling and you are suffering, they might take it as a tool against you in the future. So the studies say that 60% of the people who visit a general physician with pain symptoms, pain in the sense the commonly seen pain symptom in Indian context is headache. Headache doesn't mean that this part of the body, this sides and the backside, and also lower back pain. If you don't have any spinal issues, the lower back pain can be psychological. 30% of the people who visit a cardiologist, these two sectors do not have a physical illness. Instead, they have a psychological issue. But what happens? These physical issues are most accepted in our society. You cannot go out and tell people that you are suffering from depression, but you can tell people that you are suffering from pain. You can tell people that you are suffering from heart attack, right? Because it's more accepted in the system. So what happens, when you interact with a person, how many of us, it's time for us to just closely observe ourselves and see, am I struggling? Am I, putting too much effort in terms of managing my day-to-day life? And it's time for you to start talking about it. And the same way, it's time for you to talk to other people whom you interact on a regular day and check with them that how they are doing, what they are doing. So when you take a class with 40, 50 people, I understand that it may not be possible for you to check each and every individual separately. But it's time for you to see, is there any marked difference in the child's behavioral pattern? He was very, participative in the previous sessions, but nowadays he's not participating. He used to submit assignments, homework assignments on time before, but nowadays he's not doing it. So how do we take care of that? So I will come to that a little later. So what happens when you have these symptoms coming up in our normal day-to-day life? It will start interfering with our normal day-to-day life. Our personal life is affected. Our social life is affected. our occupational life is affected. So it's time for us to understand these issues before it gets into an impairment. See, 60% of the people or 70% of the people who attend this workshop or this webinar may not get there. But I'm trying to say that you interact with a lot of people on a regular day, not only students, but your family members, your neighbors, other people in the society. So it's time for us to be vigilant about these things. And another important issue, 2019, there was a very interesting study conducted by Tata Institute of Social Sciences based in Mumbai. So they said that an average Indian spends around 3 hours to 4 hours in his social media. I mean, the screen time. That's in 2019, when before this lockdown, before this pandemic. But you know that now the pandemic started, almost all of us are spending a lot of time in the social networking sites or in this mobile phone. So what happened? There is a side effect for this. There are a lot of side effects. The primary side effect is the kind of information you read in this WhatsApp forwards or the kind of random sites regarding COVID is not always true. So what happens when you start reading these kind of information and you forward this diligently to other people in your network? So what happens is that in the long run, you are spreading wrong messages, and you are taking these messages and you become anxious about it, worried about it. So most of the anxiety which we see in our clinic setting right now are primarily to do with this kind of wrong information. So there is the lakhs and lakhs of people have died. But I had a client who recently came and told me that, see, I got a message saying that now this wave is the third wave and the fourth wave is going to come up, and that's for children. So what do? I have 2 children. What will happen if I lose them? So people getting into that kind of anxiety attacks, right? So it's time for us to limit the amount of time you spent in the social media setting also, and also be very vigilant about the kind of news you read. If you think that you want to read authentic news about COVID, make sure that you read the news from the government website, World Health Organization's website, UN website, instead of just checking random news channels, because they have their own agendas in terms of putting up the processes. So it starts impacting our psychological system. People get into panic, and it maintains and it gets into other psychological issues. When we look into children, this is a very delicate population which is impacted during this pandemic. Not directly, as they might have not got COVID, 19 like other people, other elderly people, but the psychological impact among children, especially school children, is slightly on the higher side. I'm sure that you're all addressing it, but see what happens when they go. Usually, when they go to school, they had a lot of avenues in terms of venting their energy. They walk here and there, run here and there. They get in a lot of play, games, activities. So they, in the evening when they go back home, they are kind of physically spend their almost all their energy. And more than that, when they interact with their classmates, when they interact with the teacher, when they engage in these activities, these are all linking with their personality development also. The schools are mainly for that, right? The personality development. But what happens now? Now, since the children are sitting at home, you know that there is no space for them to vent their energy. We all have limited play areas and limited house areas, right? So children may not have major activities in a controlled way, like the school used to offer them before, may not be there. So it's time for us to think, as a mother, as a father, as a teacher. It's time for us to encourage these activities in the children, so that they'll have more. Otherwise, what happens if they don't have physical activity? They'll spend a lot of time in their social media, mobile phones, games, and things like that. So the unhealthy and healthy coping strategies. So whenever you have a problem, there are different ways of coping that, right? You can run away from problem, or you can stay there and address that problem with that person, and help the other person to navigate this problem by resolving it. But during this pandemic, we found that emotional disorders are slightly on the high side. Anxiety, depression, other emotional disorders are slightly on the higher side now. Alcohol abuse has gone up because these are all unhealthy coping strategies. I don't want to face this situation. So what do? I just run away. Running away is, alcohol is a running away problem. No, alcohol is a coping strategy. People come and say that I'm drinking alcohol because I have a lot of problems. But after you drink, once that kick is over, you still have problems, right? You, for that half an hour, 1 hour, or maximum 2 hours, you escape from the problem. So most of us believe in running away from problems. So that running away from problems are slightly high during this particular pandemic. Suicide rates have gone up among school and college population, young adults. So these are all indicators for us to closely observe the mental health of each and every individual whomever we closely connect with, associate with. So and the another one, see, for almost all of us, you just see our current schedule right now. Previously, how was it? Previously, we get up in the morning, we complete our morning chores, including cooking or whatever it is. We go to the college, go to the school, go to the workplace. We are there till afternoon or evening, and then we come back home, right? But when we are at the workplace, we are completely occupied. We interact with people, we chat with them, we have lunch with them together, we have coffee with them, we have recreational activities with them. You crack jokes with other people, then only you come back, right? So that means to say that you had a lot of work was kind of a venting space also for almost all of us. And used to spend most of us used to spend 4 hours, 5 hours of our waking hours in our home. But now it's not like that. Now it's 24/7 we are spending. Our usual venting options are limited. So we don't meet people. No, we have limitation in talking over phone, right? You might say that I'm talking to my friend every day, but that's fine. But meeting somebody and now telephonically connecting with them is kind of different. So what happens here is that most of us had our recreational activities. The kind of recreational activities are limited now. So I was thinking, we recently did a small survey in Bangalore among some of the residential population. When they are in distress, what do? When they were in distress, during 2000, it's a retrospective study. Then most of them mentioned that they used to go for a long drive, or go to the shopping mall nearby, go to a movie, or go for a walk. Or so in Bangalore is famous for a lot of lakes. So they go for a walk near the lake and all. But these options, when we compared now in 2020 and 2021, unfortunately, none of these options are possible right now. You cannot go out for a long drive because police will catch you. You cannot go out to the shopping malls and theater because that's closed. You cannot go to the parks and lakeside for walking and running. That is also closed. What do? That is the issue. So right now, you cannot blame the system now. A system is like this, so you cannot. That's the reason why I'm not able to do anything. So limited opportunities, at these limited options, what can be done in terms of containing this issue? This COVID will be there for some more time, or we don't know whether we are getting another wave in the future. But now we'll discuss about what are the factors, what are the things which will help you in terms of being resilient. Resilient means bouncing back. See, always remember, every psychological issue has a preparatory phase. It's not like, say, today you saw me, I'm talking perfectly okay, but tomorrow you see that I'm completely psychologically ill. Very rarely it will happen. That means to say that the graph is kind of a gradual graph. So there is a preparatory phase for you to become a psychologically disturbed individual. That means to say that you have enough time to intervene before the individual gets into a psychologically ill individual. So that preparatory phase, if you're able to intervene something, you will be able to reverse the issue. Most of the issues, not all, by the way. And this process, what can be done? This is called resilient factors. Now, you know that globally, we don't talk about IQ anymore. IQ is important, but the options, now we talk about AQ. So initially we start talking about IQ, then we started talking about EQ, then we started talking about SQ. EQ in the sense, emotional, SQ, social quotient. Then later people start talking about spiritual quotient and all. Now we started talking about AQ. A means adversity quotient. Are you able to, how far the kids are able to bounce back? Resilient. No, we don't want, now the world is requiring people who can support each other, who can buffer each other, who can care and being concerned to each other. Now this corona, COVID and all taught us all these factors, right? We want people to support us. We are becoming isolated. We want somebody to call us and ask us, how are you doing? Do you need any help? Isn't it? So IQ, more than IQ, we need these kind of factors. So is it possible for us to develop this resilience among ourselves, at least during this process of COVID? Make sure that after COVID also, right? The first one, physical exercises. So when I say physical exercises, I'm sure that it's very easy to say, but most of us do not do it. But what are the attractions of physical exercises? When I say physical exercises, you don't need to enroll yourself into a gym or take it forward to the next level. No, you don't need to do anything of that sort. Can you spare around 15 to 20 minutes, maximum 40 minutes every day? You don't need to do it in one stretch also. You can do it 15 minutes 3 times or 10 minutes 4 times. Is it possible? And if you are able to do that, there are a couple of reasons. Psychologically, it will help you to distract yourself. Otherwise, you are always thinking about random things. It will help you to distract yourself. And it will also help you to have this thinking that, control. You are able to control your life. That once you've done something nice, something good like this, it's a kind of a feedback to you. It's a kind of a reinforcement to your system. It's a psychological benefit. What are the physical benefits of exercises? The kind of hormones which are released during physical exercises. When you are sweating, the serotonin, the dopamine, the neurotransmitters, which are called happiness hormones. See, instead of taking a medicine, you will easily get these hormones by having 30 minutes of exercise. Remember, physical exercises are dose dependent. Doing it once a week is not going to help you. Do it minimum 4 days a week. 4 days, 7 days are there. 4 days, if you're able to do it, you'll be able to get the changes in minimum 30 days. In 1 month, you will be able to see changes. And make sure that you encourage this with your students, your family members, everyone, at least during this lockdown, at least during this pandemic. Do you know why? Otherwise, see, if there was no pandemic, the kids used to go out and play and things like that. That's not happening now. So, and for us also, we used to walk. Say you go to school, the three or 4 storied building, you walk up and down. That itself was enough for you before. But now those options are not there. So we might need to understand, to make sure that these options are newly generated options in our limited space, limited resource, right? So one is physical exercise. Second one, there is a problem right now. The problem is that most of us are working from home. So what happens? Our timetable is completely haphazard. In the sense, previously what happens? You get up in the morning, you prepare everything, then you go to school, or you take bath, or because you have to get up in the morning for preparing food. What happens? You used to go to sleep on time and things like that. But nowadays, whomever I interact, they say that they sleep only at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock and things like that. Now this Netflix, Amazon Prime, people watch it rigorously, continuously. One season and all is completed in one day itself. So I'm not against all these things. From a psychology perspective, remember that controlled viewing is always good. Remember that an adult should have 7 to 8 hours of sleep every day. Sleep, we never gave this much importance till now. But now, the recent researchers from Harvard and Stanford, from the sleep laboratories across the world, very clearly say that if you're not sleeping 7 to 8 hours, a lot of impairment can happen. What are the primary impairments? Attention, concentration, memory, problem solving, executive functions. People who are not able to sleep 7 to 8 hours, their aging starts early. When I say aging, it includes early dementia also. The first is cognitive one. That's what I said right now. Second one is emotional issues. If you're not able to sleep for 7 to 8 hours on a regular day, your emotional regulation is affected. So that's the reason why on that particular day, what happens, or going forward, you feel very, very disturbed very easily, very sensitive very easily, not able to. So previously, if somebody crack a joke, you'll be able to take it lightly, but nowadays you're not able to take it very lightly, and you become very disturbed by the smaller mistakes done by the students, the family members, and things like that. Emotional regulation. So one of the factor which maintains your emotional regulation, your REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, is a part of your sleep. So remember, 7 to 8 hours of sleep. So you need to have sleep before 12 o'clock, midnight, so that you will be able to get up on time. And remember, no caffeinated drinks after 7 p.m. No alcohol after 4 p.m. And remember that do not take your mobile phone to your bedroom. These are all some of the factors which you need to very important, because what happens, this light, when you watch it, it can reduce the production of melatonin in your brain. Melatonin is one of the sleep indicators. So these are all scientifically proven. So that what I'm trying to say that you cannot control COVID. You cannot control the deaths happening outside, but you can control your day-to-day routine, day-to-day schedule, so that you can control and modify your emotional health. Once your emotional health is impacted, the people who are with you, your family members, the students you interact with, their mental health also will improve. Otherwise, what happens? We will become cranky, we'll become crazy, we'll become irritated, frustrated very easily. Our tolerance levels will go down also very easily. The third one, which is very important, meals on time. Some of the people come and say that since they are not doing anything, they skip the meals in lunch is missed, or sometimes they have lunch late in the or brunch and then lunch and dinner. A lot of crazy ideas people come with. Remember, if you don't have proper meals on time, what happens? Your blood sugar levels can get varied, and your emotional regulation. You know that when your blood sugar levels are slightly disturbed, your emotions get dysregulated. This is also one of the factors which you can maintain. The fourth one, recreational activities. So what do you mean by recreational activities? So do not engage in a new activity. New activity in the sense, do not spend this time for learning a new activity altogether, because it will take a lot of time and energy for you to learn. Now, if you're very keen, you can definitely do that. I really appreciate it. But I strongly recommend, or we strongly recommend, identify 10 activities which you enjoyed doing before from your past. It can be sketching, painting, drawing, listening to music, watching TV, going for a walk, talking to friends, anything. If possible, in active activities in the sense like sketching, drawing, and all active, listening to music, watching TV, very passive. And identify minimum 5 to 10 active engagements, active activities, so that what you can do is you can implement at least one activity a day. At least one activity a day, so that you feel relieved, you feel comfortable, and you feel happy in your system. Right. And if possible, connect with friends and family members on a regular day. There was a company in Bangalore. They initiated a proactive calling among colleagues. So what they did was, the assignment is, there is no fixed assignment. I mean, you should do and all. No, they recommended their employees to call up each other, minimum 2 employees every day, randomly, and just check with them. Hello, how are you doing? What's happening with you? How can I help you? Just that, most of the time, most other people say that I'm happy, I'm fine, I'm okay. No, thank you, don't need to do anything. But that simple, this is a gesture. This is the warm, happy gesture. The other person feels connected, and he also feels that I'm not alone. And that is what required during this pandemic. Okay. And remember, when you're connected, when you are interacting with people, the kind of chemicals which are released is called oxytocin, which is a happiness hormone again. That's the reason why we always tell that, how about family time? How many of you have a specific time for family time? When most of the people, when they talk about family time, they always say that that's a time where we watch TV together. No, family time is not watching TV together. Family time is just sitting together and playing something together, talking about something together. Even eating together is also fine, but not watching TV together. Do not consider it as family time. No, it's a time for us to build our relationship again, reinvest or invest again and again in our relationship, so that we can enrich this time in the future, so that it's not a dead investment. So during this time, pandemic, we a lot of other factors are limited, but it's time for us to invest in the relationship. Remember, always investing in relationship, the return of investment is very high when you compare with other investments. So make sure that this time you do that. And there are a lot of other things also, but I don't want to go into that details. But one element which we always talk about is journaling, writing down. Right? Previously, we used to say that about diary writing. Along with diary writing, there is something called journaling. You can write about your feelings, your thoughts on that particular day. Along with a random journaling, I recommend something called gratitude journal. Every day, before you go to bed, write about 3 things that you felt grateful on that particular day. So no, we don't have big events happening on a regular day, right? Fine. Simple things, small things are fine. Like today when I was cooking, my child came and sat next to me. Today when I was taking the class, one student asked me, "Madam, how am I doing? How are you doing?" These are all simple day-to-day stuff, but those things you need to be grateful about. That. So keep a small grateful gratitude journal. Write 3 things every day. These are all, there are reasons, the kind of hormones released during this particular time. Every thought is a chemical. You need to understand. Every thought is a chemical. So once there's a very famous researcher called Deepak Chopra. Deepak Chopra is an Indian, practices with, he previously used to work with Harvard Medical School. He's a gastroenterologist, a proponent of psychoneuroimmunology, how psychological systems impact your immune system. So he mentioned that when same individual, so you suppose, you are going to a amusement park. You get into a joy ride, and you really feel, you feel that, oh my God, I'm too much for me to handle. I just want to run away from this place, because the joy rides are very tricky rides, right? Then that time, the chemical which is released in your brain is called cortisol, stress hormone. But you get into the same joy ride and you feel that, oh, wow, this is amazing. This is a joy ride I have been waiting since quite some time, ages. that time the chemical which is released is called interleukins, which is a healthy hormone. See, the same situation, but the way you look at things makes a huge difference in your system. Every thought is a chemical. So what happens is that if you start thinking about negative things on a regular day, repeatedly thinking, then remember you are directly changing your brain into a negative side, because you are releasing negative hormones like cortisols and things like that. You are releasing. So it's time for us to, and who is thinking? You are thinking, we are thinking. So we can modify our thinking process. How do we do that? So one of the most recommended methodology right now is called mindfulness. Mindfulness is a Zen Buddhist practice which helps you in staying in the present. So what is human nature? Usually human nature is either you think about things from the past or things from the future. We always oscillate between past and the future. Going back to the past and think, oh, why did I do that? I regret about it. I want to modify it. Or I think about future. So what happened? What's the problem with these two? These two, past and future, you don't have any control. You cannot go back and correct your past. You cannot go to the future and modify your future also. The only thing you have control is your present. So mindfulness is a meditative exercise, is an exercise which will help you in staying in the present. And in the present, things are kind of okay. You are able to manage. So the negative emotions, negative issues, negative thinking patterns can be modified by staying in the present. Okay. So right now, before we close, I will take 3 to 5 minutes for this simple exercise. I will just initiate this exercise and I will give you some links for you to start practicing this. So you can practice this anywhere, by the way. You can, if you are cooking, you can cook and practice this. If you're driving, you can drive and practice this. You're lying down, you can, so wherever you're sitting, you sit comfortably there. We'll do this exercise for 2 minutes. Sit in a comfortable posture. Close your eyes. And you are free to change your posture if you want to during this session of these 3 or 4 minutes. Close your eyes. Collapse your entire body onto that chair or wherever you are sitting. And you may slowly start focusing on your breathing. You don't need to manipulate your breathing. You don't need to modify your breathing. Just breathe as it is. So when you inhale, feel the inhalation. Tell yourself that you're inhaling. When you exhale, just feel the exhalation. Tell yourself that you're exhaling. So when you inhale, feel the cool air touching your nostrils. When you exhale, feel the warm air touching your nostrils. Feel the difference. Remember, you might get a lot of thoughts, a lot of images, a lot of impressions during this time, during this session. That is absolutely normal. But the moment you realize that you're thinking something else, come back immediately to your breathing. Your breathing is going to be your anchor. Inhale and exhale. Continue focusing on your inhalation and exhalation. When you inhale, feel the cool air touching your nostrils. When you exhale, feel the warm air touching your nostrils. As you keep on focusing on your breathing, you could feel that your breath is becoming deeper. You're able to feel that your breath is becoming rhythmic. So So you may continue focusing on it. Very good. Very good. Continue in this state for 30 seconds till I wake you up. Continue focusing on your breathing. Your normal, natural breathing, which is going on all by itself. Normal, natural breathing, which is going on all by itself. Normal, natural breathing, which is going on all by itself. Very good. You may slowly open your eyes and come up. There is a very useful Netflix series called Headspace. Headspace is basically a well-researched app on mindfulness. So if you have time, I recommend all of you to watch this Netflix series called Headspace. Only one season, 6 or 7 episodes, 20 to 30 minutes each. You can take your own time so that it will teach you the philosophy, the psychology, the biology of mindfulness practice. And there are a lot of exercises where you can start doing it by yourself. It's a well-researched area. This is one. Before I close, one more thing. Remember, when a person suffering from a psychological issue, going through a psychological issue, not everyone require intense psychotherapeutic process or counseling or medicines. Almost 60% of the people require only just want to talk. If they are able to talk about it, if they are able to communicate it, if they are able to talk to somebody who can listen to them non-judgmentally, who they can talk to them with somebody who is empathetic, who is not critical, that is enough for them. I would say that it is time for all of us to translate ourselves into comfortable listeners, non-judgmental human beings, and non-critical associates. And remember, this is a passing phase. All of us will be able to sail through this if provided we support each other. So I'm stopping here. I thank once again Father Binoy and his team for giving me this opportunity to interact with all of you during this Sunday afternoon, during this crisis, pandemic. Thank you. Over to you, Father Binoy.
Thank you, dear sir, for your wonderful talk. Now we take up some questions. My first question is coming from me. What was your experience with our cricket stars? Because you have experience with our famous cricket stars, Sachin Tendulkar, and many of the cricket stars. Now at present, you are the performance coach for Punjab Kings 11. So could you please give us the taste? How do you counsel them? How do you increase their performance? How do you advise them to reduce their mental anxiety, tension, and the tension to grow up to the expectation of the people?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. So I will talk about Sachin and his experience also in the process. See, remember, Sachin, so skill set alone may not be enough. See, that's the reason why I said IQ may not be enough to perform well in the life. Sachin Tendulkar, if you remember, between his 99th century and 100th century, he took a lot of games to complete his 100th century. Every time he was getting out at 99, 97, 96, and 95 and 90s and all. Why? Because anxiety was interfering with our performance. So the moment you realize that anxiety or any psychological issue which interferes with our normal day-to-day life, our performance is impacted. Because it's like So very beautiful analogy given by one of my professors. He says that when you are anxious, when you are worried, it's like you are wearing colored goggles. Suppose you are wearing a blue goggles. Wherever you look at the world, you see only blue color, only or yellow color. You won't see the reality. So Sachin Tendulkar took a lot of the psychological support in terms of going to the next level. So I'll give one example of how these psychological systems help these people. You take, so you run for 100 meters, you time it. Second time, you run the same 100 meters chased by a dog. Definitely that pressure of run by a dog, your speed increases. But both times the same person ran. So where is this energy coming from? We all have this energy inside. We all have this energy locked up inside. So is it possible for us to take out this energy? You can take out this energy only if you are not anxious. You know that, right? Say for example, you are attending an interview, but they asked a question. You know that, I know this answer, but I'm not able to tell right now. But once the interview is over, you come out of the interview room, then you suddenly remember, oh, I knew this answer. This is the answer. Why? Because the anxiety, the emotional issue was blocking you. The emotional issue blocked you. That's the reason why you were not able to perform. So this is applicable with cricketers also. The people who are in our Indian cricket team, or the people playing in Ranji teams, or the Premier League, they're all amazingly talented individuals. Their skill set is unmatchable. But even though their skill set is unmatchable, most of the time, everyone are not able to perform very well. Why? Because some of these stress, anxiety, worry, tension, lack of sleep, lack of physical, lack of structure interferes with that. So as a psychologist, as a performance coach, we'll try to understand what are the factors which interfere with their performance, and we try to remove it by bringing in structure to their normal day-to-day life.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I would like to ask one question about family. Now, Westernization is creeping into Indian culture. Now, the destruction of the family is in rapid increase. So as a psychologist and as a family therapist, and you are a non-family therapist in Bangalore, and I know since I know you personally, I know the number of people who are coming to you for therapeutic sessions. So what is a piece of advice you have for our teachers? I think most of the participants are teachers. There are some sisters as well. So what is your piece of advice for the families to maintain the integrity, unity, that affection of the family intact?
Okay. Yeah, that's very relevant question during this pandemic, by the way. One reason is that before we used to spend only very few hours in family, but now 24/7, all of us are in the family itself. So the conflicts in the family is increasing rapidly. The number of divorce, the number of abuses, the number of aggression reported in the family counseling units are slightly on the higher side. So the first thing which we are all working, right? The first thing which we need to understand is, how do we integrate work and life? How do we integrate work and life? So previously we used to think that we need to separate work separately, our social life, family life, other life separately. But now we believe that it's not about separating, it's about integrating. Integrating in the sense, how can we manage these two things without having in a incongruent way? How can we make both these things congruent? The first thing is that, are we able to spend quality time? So it's not about, like I said before, quantity time. People always say, I spend around 6 hours every day with my family. What do? You will be in the TV, watching TV, or in your mobile phone. The other family members will be watching TV or mobile phone, or they're doing their own work. So we used to say this in Kerala. I'm originally from Kerala. So we used to say that the quality of family in Kerala context was very good in beginning of 1990s and beginning of 2000. Do you know why? Because there we had something called power cut during the evenings, because there was a power shortage in the state and we had power cut. So what happened? The power cut, you can't do anything. You can't switch off the TV. You can't go out 30 to 40 minutes or 1 hour. Everyone used to sit together. They talk about that particular day. So I remember that which happened in my family when I was a kid. The power cut means my parents were teachers, school teachers. So they used to tell about what happened during that particular day. So I used to tell about what happened in my school, and in the evening when I went out for playing football or cricket or whatever it is. So that 40 minutes was basically a family time, uninterrupted family time. But do we have that kind of a family time in our current setting? No. First of all, there is no power cut. Second thing, almost all of us are busy with. So previously there was only one channel. Now we have 100 channels. Apart from channels, we have all these Netflix, all those things easily available for everyone. Every mobile phone have internet right now. So what happens? Every kid will have a mobile phone, or 4 people in the family, 4 people will have 4 mobile phone, and they will be sitting in different corners of the house, and they're in their life. So what happens is that even though I am with my family, I am actually isolate. I'm not a part of the family system. So we can't call the family as a system now. So what is a shortcut? There is only one shortcut. Reinvent family time. Reinvent, rediscover family time. Understand each other. There are extreme examples I can give. One example is that the child was a day scholar. It was in 2017 example, where the child, once he attempted suicide, that was a time when the parents started understanding that the child was going through a difficult phase in his life. But when we interviewed the child said that I never had an opportunity to tell this to my family members. I never got an opportunity to talk to my father, talk to my mother, even though he was coming from his family. So every day. So what I'm trying to say that this is a time for us to reinvent family time, each other, connect with each other, talk to each other, openly discuss about our feelings, our emotions with each other, and allow and encourage our kids and others to talk to us. Make sure that, like I said, the two very important things: non-judgmental, non-critical. So our family should be a space where people can say anything. Otherwise, what happened? They will close it, and they cannot tell outside people because it's very difficult for them, because they feel that they will be judged. So it's time. So it's in cutting the story short, having a non-judgmental space, reinventing family time. That's the only shortcut to improve family.
So there is a small question from Mr. Divakar. Are there any physical exercises to improve mental health apart from meditation?
Yeah, so simple running, jogging, where you can sweat, that is enough. So in yoga, they have a lot of these asanas, right? Even Surya Namaskar is enough for you to have. So any physical exercises where you start sweating, minimum for 30 to 40 minutes is enough for you to have these neurochemicals like serotonin, dopamine to release. But you do it regularly.
Okay, sir. Another question. What are the major reasons for suicides in India? Major reasons. We don't do a major explanation, but major reasons.
See, from a psychiatry perspective, major reason is emotional issues, especially depression. From a sociological angle, suicide is a cry for help, because you feel that it's too much for you to handle. You want to run away. So that is the reason why in female population, the suicide attempts are very high. Very high. Why? Because they feel that's too much for them to handle. So they just want to express that they are in distress. But remember, in short, depression is considered to be, emotional disorders, especially depression, is considered to be the major reason for suicides in India.
When we look at traditional India, we had a very good family life. We always say that ladies were very submissive, or Indian marriages are supposed to be like this inverted comma. But then today's situation is totally different. The divorce rate is totally in rapid rate. So as a psychologist, especially coming from a cosmopolitan city like Bangalore, and you visit foreign countries as well. So what is your advice to avoid divorces in the families? Now the families are intact. There may be some participants here must have thought about divorce, but then what is your piece of advice to avoid this danger? Of course, it is a danger to family life.
Yeah. See, there are a lot of reasons are there. One of the primary reason is that because of these feminist movements and all, females are empowered. They started going out and getting themselves educated. They started taking up jobs full time. But what happens is that they have to go out for job and come back home and do the household work also. But men are still the same. They feel that they cannot engage in all these activities and things like that. But if the role changed in the female segment, if the men are not able to change themselves in terms of adapting to the new change in the world, this can create a lot of problems. So what happens is that it's still now, even today, the family systems are authoritarian in nature. Whereas male-centric families, male will decide about what's going to happen, what are the major decisions, what needs to be done, and things like that. Even in that kind of families also, females are also equally responsible for bringing in money into the system. So what happens is that there is a dissonance. And if this dissonance is not handled, if this dissonance is not worked on, and if the men are not educated enough in terms of understanding this change in the dynamics, it will create a lot of problems. And also one more thing before I stop, the moment you realize that there is an issue in the family environment, you remember that it requires support. If you try to resolve it by yourself, it is like almost like covering up a problem. You just cover up a problem, but how long you will be able to continue like that? The cover will go away and the problem will come out. So whenever there is a problem comes up, try to resolve it then and there itself. If you're not able to resolve it by yourself, take a professional support before it becomes very, very severe. In Indian context, you know that counseling and psychotherapy is taken only in the last minute. By then, the problem might have gone into a deep level impairment. It will be very difficult for a counselor or a psychologist to support and help you at that point in time.
Sir, you can be a little more precise as we have number of questions more.
Oh.
So, what is the name of the web series you suggested on Netflix?
Headspace.
I think it is Headspace, Headspace. Correct, sir?
Yes.
Yeah. So Vijay Hedo, it is Headspace. So next question, how to get out from depression? I know it's a big question,
Yeah.
but then could you be precise for that?
If it is depression, I might say that you might require combined treatment, medicines and psychotherapy. There is a model called cognitive behavioral therapy. Try to approach a counselor who knows this, who practices this. He will be able to help you. Otherwise, follow the practices which I mentioned for the time being.
So I think they should definitely consult a psychiatrist, I think. No, sir?
If it is depression.
Yeah, depression. So that's because mainly people treat themselves when they are in depression. Sir, another question from Supriya. Spiritual and mental health are related, but how to instill the importance in children?
So bring in a structure, bring in a valid structure. Say for example, you can have a family time, you can have a prayer time. And there are very interesting studies conducted in India right now. They're saying that people who are spiritually inclined, their psychological distress levels are slightly on the lower side. So what happens when you believe in a power, any power, any religion, any power, you feel that you are protected.
Okay. It is a question from Sister Flowerlet. How can we improve positive thinking from a negative incident in our day-to-day life? I think it's a very important question. All of us come across negative incidents, but then sometimes some incidents it takes very little time. Some incidents sometimes we are unable to come out. So could you please guide us?
So it can be a grieving process, right? So grieving process will take time. Some of the time, first 1 week, 2 weeks is normal to have negative thinking and negative processes. So I strongly recommend the practice which I mentioned is mindfulness. So mindfulness will help you in terms of staying in the present and at the same time having a social support. These two are the commonly seen, commonly used techniques in our psychotherapy and counseling setting to help an individual to come out of this so-called trauma. Remember, if it is a trauma, if it is still impairing after 3-4 months, then that person might require a counseling or psychological support. Otherwise, mindfulness might be enough. So I recommend one more app here called Medito. Along with Headspace, Medito is an app which can be downloaded from the App Store and you can start practicing it. It's very good. For this question also, you can use this Medito app.
Okay, sir, we have a question from Mr. Sandeep. What is the best way to cope with the stress? Again, it's a very elaborate question. But
yeah, but you know that, so stress management is almost like goes in line with resilient management. How can we become resilient? The first thing is having a proper structure, physical exercises, talking to people, having a group structure, having recreational activities, meals on time, sleeping for 7 to 8 hours, and having a strong social support network. These are all very important for you to handle your stress right now. Second thing, and the most important, do not watch and listen to news more than 2 or 3 times a day related to COVID, and watch the news only from authentic sources. So these are some of the things can be used in terms of managing your stress. By the way, this needs to be structured and regular. Once in a week may not help you. Regular.
sir, we have a little difficult question from Mr. Duryodhan. Can meditation solve all the depression? Will it is it helpful to us?
No, meditation cannot solve all the depression. Say depression, like I said, is a combined treatment. Medicine sometime required, sometime cognitive behavior therapy required, sometime mindfulness meditation alone might be enough. But each and every individual is different, right? So depending on the individual, depending on the personality frame, depending on the reason why the person got into depression, all these things matters. But meditation can, so something is better than nothing. So in that way, meditation is much better.
So another important question, but again, elaborate question. How to control fear?
Fear is a normal response, right? But what do you do when you're fearful? That is very important. Most of us do avoid. So I have a public speaking coming up tomorrow. So if I'm fearful, what do? I tell the organizer that I'm sick, I can't come. So avoidance. So instead of managing fear, I would say you manage the coping strategies, unhealthy coping strategies. So manage the avoidance. Gradually expose yourself to those situations where you are fearful, where you are scared, where you are concerned. That is the only way. So in therapy also, we use a concept called exposure therapy for managing fear. Why? Because majority of the people avoid getting into a fearful situation. So in simple terms, gradual exposure is the solution for managing fear.
Okay, sir. So one question. I have seen so many people maintaining relationship for years together, but then due to some reasons, they end up in breakdown. So what is the major reason for this year-long relationship breakdown? And the second part of the question is, what is the major principle to maintain the warmth of the relationship what we are having?
Okay, so a couple of reasons can be there for the breakups. It can be because you, like I said before, you might have not addressed the issues then and there itself. You might have covered it, and multiple things come up in the future, and it gets into a kindling effect. In the sense, it add on together, and after a point, it's like you may not be able to handle it and cover it up. That is the time it bursts out, and you land up in breakup. So always remember, when they break up at that point in time, say for 40 years of relationship, at the age of 65 they break up. Do not think that at the age of 65 they had problems. They might have had problems right from the beginning itself. Their coping strategies were very not good in terms of handling that. So how do we handle it? That the issue which I mentioned before, there are no shortcuts for relationship building. You need to invest time, invest energy, invest your effort in terms of building the relationship. So the shortcut to invest in the relationship is to be available for the other person, to connect with the other person, spend time with the other person, communicate with the other person. Then only you will be able to enhance the relationship. It's always, remember, your returns are linked with your investment. You cannot expect a huge return if your investment is low.
Okay, we have a question from another teacher, Sushma Kopragade. How to manage time as well as worry and tension as a working lady? Sometimes it creates stress.
Okay. The best possible answer is to have a schedule, including, there's a new model called metacognitive therapy. They have a concept called worry postponement technique. So worry is a normal response. Worry is related to problem solving. You cannot run away from worry. So having a proper schedule. So why schools function perfectly well? Because they have a schedule. They have a class. For every class, they have a schedule. They have a timetable, so that no two teachers come on the same time to the same class for taking two different papers. Why? Because there's a timetable. Same way, if you can have a timetable which is structured, the same time flexible, then you will be able to handle those things perfectly well. And there is one more technique called worry postponement, where you keep one time, say for example 4:30 to 5 o'clock, only for worrying. So you think about all these unwanted things on that particular time. This is a very structured program, and timetabling is the most appreciated methodology.
We have a question from Aarti Singh. How to make everything as it is when things are actually not in our control?
Yeah. So remember, thinking about things you don't have any control, how is it going to make a difference? So mindfulness is a technique which will help you in terms of shifting your focus from things you don't have any control to things you have control. You don't have any control over the pandemic, lockdown, all those things. So these exercises are helping you to shift the focus from things you don't have any control to things you have control. By controlling yourself, controlling your thought patterns, your emotional system, you will have more, you will see these things outside in a better way. That's the only option.
Okay, I have a question on behalf of some brothers attending. They were attending all the webinars. Brothers from Arulillam, I think they are still there. I have a high appreciation for them, their interest. They are the ones who have accepted God's call, and they are getting training to become priests. So when they have decision-making difficulties because they are in the novitiate, actually this question is not coming from them, but since I was also a novice, once upon a time, I am just asking on behalf of them so that their session may be beneficial to them. When they have decision-making difficulties due to some incidents at home or in the novitiate or whatever, so what is a piece of advice to them to be strong with their decision?
Yeah. So for that to bring in clarity, I would, like I said, the previous example which I mentioned, when you are in a roadblock, you're kind of wearing colored goggles. You see only that color. So to bring in clarity, I would say that one of the methodology is, along with the methodologies you practice, one of the methodology is to start writing it down as a journaling practice. Second one, to have open dialogues with seniors, mentors, and peers. So that, see, the way I look at the world may not be the correct way, but from another person, he will be looking at the same world from a different perspective. So when you start connecting with people, you will be able to see the same issue from multiple angles. And this difference in the perspective will bring in clarity. So one is to have a structure, to have mindfulness, to have dialogues, connecting with people, talking to people, writing down, journaling. All these things will bring in clarity in the system. But it's not that easy. It will take time, but eventually it will bring in.
Okay, sir. There's a question coming from Shruti Nair. How can we listen to you more? Do you have a YouTube channel or website?
Not yet. Website is there, not yet, but YouTube channel we will eventually come in.
Maybe you can share your number or email, whatever.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, sir. I think one more question. I think we can stop. I think we can wind up the sessions.
Yeah, yes.
Excuse me, sir. Can you please clear me difference between stress and pressure?
Yeah. So technically, these two terms are one. Stress is a psychological term. Pressure, which is term from a physics term, but both are discussed in the same domain altogether because it is impacting your system. Anything which impacts your system, that's the pressure. In psychological term, we call it as stress.
Okay. Sir, final question. You told in order to maintain happiness, good health, stay healthy, an adult should sleep 6 to 7 hours.
7 to 8 hours.
7 to 8 hours. Okay, 7 to 8 hours. And it is medicinal as well. But people complain that they do not get sleep. They lie down, but they do not get sleep. So what is your advice to them?
Okay, so that there is an issue called insomnia, right? Where you want to sleep, but you are not able to sleep. There are two things can be used. One is sleep restriction. Say, for example, you go to bed at 10:30 and you sleep only at 12. And if it is repeated on a regular day, make sure that do not go to bed at 10:30. Now, since you're sleeping only at 12, you go to bed at 11:30 or 11:40. That is called sleep restriction. You are restricting your sleep. So in the coming days, you will be able to see that sleep cycle slowly proceeds. Second thing, always remember, do not watch. Say for you're going to bed at 11 o'clock. Shut your TV at 8 o'clock itself. Minimum 2 hours before the sleeping time. Do not take late dinner. Prepone your dinner. Do not take coffee, tea after 6 o'clock. Do not drink alcohol after 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock because your kidney and the liver will take that much time to break down these enzymes. So if you're able to have these simple sleep hygiene practices, then you will be able to manage your sleep well. Otherwise, always remember, if you're stressed also, you can't sleep because you are in a fight or flight mode. So you're handle your sleep also. So focus on some of these meditative exercises, that meditative app and all will help you in terms of getting good sleep. If not, then you might require support, psychological support.
Sir, just last piece of question. Most of the participants are teachers, especially they are teaching students. Okay, the next generation. So you yourself were a teacher, are a teacher. And what is your piece of advice to the teachers in terms of mental wellness? Last piece of advice.
Okay. So I would say that more in our current education system, the kids spend most of the time in their entire life in the academic institutions. They look up to the teachers. Teachers are considered to be the role models. And most importantly, they would like to see the teachers walk the talk. So I would say that it should be a non-judgmental, non-critical, empathetic connection with the students, and also allowing the students to talk, allowing the students to express their feelings and emotions and the desires in an unconditional space, and the same time available for them. So this can be done because information is everywhere now. So students may not come to a school to get information alone. So it should be beyond the information, much more than the information, I would say.
As I was concluding, they're going on sending question. Now we will not take any more questions, sir. Please excuse me. How to control extreme anger which hurts others? So it's a question. Okay. Yeah. How to control extreme anger which hurts others? This will be the last question.
Sometimes anger can be a coping strategy also. Anger can be acting out behavior, can be a coping strategy also. So I would say that you retrospectively analyze what all triggers for this anger. Is it anger only with your family members or with students or with neighbors or with random people? What are the triggers for that? So first you identify the triggers. Second thing, practice mindfulness so that you will be in the present. You won't get into an automatic pilot mode. So there are triggers. So there is a tendency for us to, when a trigger comes up, you get into automatic pilot mode and respond it immediately as an anger, and later you regret. So mindfulness is one of the best practice to handle the anger, and at the same time having understanding, clarity about the triggers also. So two things, understanding triggers and being mindful, so that you will be in the present. You won't get into an automatic pilot mode.
Thank you, sir. It has been a wonderful session. And first part of the session, insight. I have attended many classes of yours when I was doing my PG, but this session was so much exciting and throwing light into a lot of deeper realities. And since most of the participants were teachers, I think that will benefit to them to handle the children in an effective manner. And of course, this COVID-19 is a crisis, and you tell that 2.7 crores of people were impacted, 3 lakhs people died, and some of the interesting sentences. We are like a pressure cooker, and if not handled properly, we can break down. Then quoting from Deepak Chopra, and mindfulness, anxiety, and dealt with the reasons for suicides, divorce, etc. So it has been a wonderful session, and your ability to handle questions, variety questions, and from various fields, and the ability to handle the questions shows how expert you are and how concerned you are about the issues of the participants. So, dear Jini sir, we are really thankful to you. Thank you for spending your precious time for all of us. And there are, I think, as I know, there are 800 people attending this, and maybe instruments around 463 I saw. But there are many people who informed me they are watching this session in group, in screens. So there are around 800 participants. So once again, I thank you so much. And again, we will invite you. So please oblige us and then come back to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Father.
I also thank all the superiors, sisters, fathers, brothers, principals, everyone for your kind cooperation and also the active session. Your number of questions, and I had to restrict the questions. So the number of questions that came up or relevant questions and real questions coming from the heart, no artificial questions. And so the questions themselves show that you were very active in the session, and you need such sessions more and more. That is the reason why a couple of you asked his contact number. And there was a question, sir, that I did not read out to you. They were asking for your contact number. If you are interested, you can leave your contact number in the chat box so that they can contact you. So I thank all the participants, all the teachers, all the principals once again for your wonderful cooperation, and a word of appreciation to Arul Illam brothers, and they are the youngest group attending this session, and they showed special interest in the webinars. This is our third webinar on COVID-19 involving different dimensions, dealing with the different areas. So all those seminars were attended by these brothers, and especially their rector, Father Panakil. So I especially thank Father Panakil and all the brothers from Arul Illam, Tamil Nadu. So once again, I thank everyone. So we conclude the session. Once again, I thank the resource person and all the participants. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm not able to share the number in the open chat. So I think, Father, you can share the number. Thank you.
Okay. So we will chat. We will share. I will share it. And one more thing for the participants, all of you will get the e-certificates from the department, and we have sent the link. We have sent the link, and you will get the 15 more minutes. After 15 minutes, we will close the link. Then you won't be able to send us. So within 15 minutes, please send your information filled and submit it. Then you will get to the e-certificates in the coming days. Not expect within a day or two, because we have to prepare 800 e-certificates. So you will get within a week or within 2 weeks maximum. So once again, we thank you and have a great weekend and a good week tomorrow onwards.
Bye. Thank you.